Remember back when Coca-Cola and the Seekers fantasized about a beautiful, harmonious world where we all live happily together, singing from the same sunny song sheets.
I like to teach the world to sing. Sing with me. Perfect harmony, perfect harmony. I like to buy the world a Coke and keep it company. That's the real thing. I like to teach the world to sing. In perfect harmony, perfectly. And I'd like to buy the world a Coke and keep it company. It's the real thing.
That has been the great globalist dream ever since. No borders, no nationalities, just a brotherhood of mankind with no possessions, no religion, no property rights, and just one big happy family slurping together on a Coke. Nowadays, the Coke has been replaced by the green Kool-Aid of climate change alarmism, and it's not the Seekers seeking to do away with your borders and our possessions, it's the United Nations in lockstep with the World Economic Forum, supported by left-wing lovies like Prince Charles, in what they are boasting will be next year the great reset of all our economies, of all our societies, and of all our personal liberties. And remember, this isn't me putting forward this crazy conspiracy theory, this is them.
Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play.
History would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset.
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call. It is imperative that we reimagine, rebuild, redesign, reinvigorate, and rebalance our world.
Reimagine, rebuild, redesign. Indeed, the so-called experts at the World Economic Forum in 2016 fantasized about what 2030 will look like and came up with what they described as utopia. And I quote, "Welcome to 2030. I own nothing. I have no privacy. And life has never been better," the World Economic Forum's experts predicted. And they go on to fantasize that there will be a global carbon tax, that US dominance will be a thing of the past, we will have stopped eating meat, and wait for it, a global displacement of 1 billion people will have been caused because of climate change. But how do the World Economic Forum and the United Nations intend to bring about this utopia of theirs, this great reset they keep promising us? Well, they need national and state governments and other bodies to play along. And one of the key tools they are using is a 3-word slogan: Build Back Better. Now, if that slogan sounds strangely familiar, that's not a coincidence. In the past couple of years, Build Back Better has bizarrely been the slogan for all sorts of different political groups around the world. Coincidence? I don't think so. According to Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum, and remember, our businesses and our government sends delegates to this clown fest every year, Build Back Better means reinventing capitalism. Build Back Better first appeared a decade ago as a slogan during Japan's rebuilding after the 2011 tsunami, when, for an example, an old crumbling seawall was replaced with a higher and stronger seawall. A sensible and somewhat obvious concept in rebuilding after a natural disaster: make the new stuff better than the old stuff. Who can argue with that? Proving why he was known as Slick Willie, Bill Clinton then nicked Build Back Better and used it to promote the Clinton Foundation after the Haiti hurricane disaster. But he added a new twist. See if you can spot it.
This is a good model for dealing with the aftermath of disasters. And if you're committed to doing what we should all be doing, which is to help people build back better with more resilient and more flexible societies, it really works well.
The president clearly is an expert on energy and passionate about the topic, which, just gives power to all the things that we're trying to do.
Could they have got any more solar panels into that? Yes, thanks to the Clintons, Building Back Better became massive subsidies for solar panels and flogging renewables to poor countries. The Clintons allegedly made themselves very rich out of this scam, but that's another story. But for the Build Back Better slogan, it was just the beginning.
We can overcome all of it if we do it together, and if we do it right, it will be good for the economy here, and it will set a shining example for the rest of the world.
Well, it was good for Bill's economy, and yes, it did set a shining example to the rest of the world, particularly the UN. Recognising the power of this innocuous-sounding slogan, the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and the rest of them had a light bulb moment. Ironic, of course, because under their plans, there won't be any more light bulbs. Anyway, with a simple sleight of hand, they realised any disaster can be the perfect excuse to build back better, meaning build back greener, by using the money that should be going to disaster relief to instead subsidise the eco-Marxist, anti-capitalist UN agenda at the same time as making renewables investors very rich. Again, this isn't me saying this. This is them. Here's Melissa Fleming, the head of communications at the United Nations.
Every country has been touched by COVID-19. Every country feels this sense of urgency, and every country, understands that they can't go it alone. So I think certainly the mind has been focused, and hopefully, yes, we're going to be missing a lot of the informal opportunities, but hopefully we can just work on what we say, building back better.
She goes on to say that building back better means building back greener. And sure enough, political organisations across the globe have been dancing to the UN's tune. Recently, the slogan weirdly has been popping up in all sorts of different political places. Here's supposedly conservative, but in fact recent climate change cult convert, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, using the disaster of the pandemic to...
and enable us not just to come through this crisis, but to come back stronger and build back better.
And here's regressive left-winger and renowned climate cultist Justin Trudeau.
It had no mention of rebuilding an economy devastated and Canadians disrupted by a terrible global pandemic. So we will be putting forward an ambitious and responsible vision of how to build Canada back better.
And no surprise, Building Back Better has also been Joe Biden's campaign slogan, as explained here by Uber lefty Elizabeth Warren.
Build it back better. We're going to take an economy that had a lot of problems, and we're going to make this economy work better going forward. That's the right approach.
And spot the pattern, because Build Back Better was also the slogan that the Green socialist Jacinda Ardern won her recent New Zealand election with.
And over the next 3 years, there is much work to do. We will build back better from the COVID crisis. To build an economy that works for everyone, to keep creating decent jobs, to upskill and train our people, to protect our environment and address our climate challenges.
Wow, she sounds like she's auditioning for the Seekers there. And right on cue, Jacinda Ardern is now being pressured to apply her COVID-19 strategies, in other words, I guess lockdowns, shutting down businesses and so on, to the so-called climate crisis. The Australian Council of Social Services, ACOS, has outlined a plan for Australia to build back better and avoid the incoming crisis of mass unemployment following the pandemic with, wait for it, a national program to install solar panels on the homes of people of low incomes. The OECD, where climate cult convert Matthias Cormann is heading off to, the OECD states one of its key principles is building back better in order to build climate resilience. The International Labour Organization wants to build back a better world. And of course, in Dan Andrews' Victoria, where else? Environment Victoria plan to take advantage of the coronavirus and the trauma of the bushfires in order to #build back better, with a list of plans including scrapping GDP growth, enhancing workers' rights, and supporting the ABC. What a farce. Or as the Green New Deal of New England puts it, Northeast England, our aim is simple: change the world for the better with a Green New Deal, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Just like the three-word slogan, Black Lives Matter, which is a phrase it is impossible to disagree with, Build Back Better is a harmless-sounding slogan that in reality is code for a sinister, radical climate cult agenda, the so-called Great Reset, which is deliberately designed to strip away your liberties and your rights using the tools of oppression and the opportunity provided by the COVID pandemic. But again, I repeat, this is not me saying this time and time and time again. It is them.
My name is John Barry. I'm Professor of Green Political Economy at Queen's University, Belfast. The pandemic has cancelled the future, but that's okay. It was a pretty bad one anyway. We should, as we're thinking about recovery from the pandemic, resist the calls to return back to normal. Normal was the problem. Normal was an ecocidal, unsustainable economic system based upon unsustainable globalization. So I think we should think about building back better to see that as we come out of this crisis, we should see that we can deal with the public health issues around COVID-19 and effectively begin the process of a new industrial revolution based around the principles of the Green New Deal and a just transition so that workers, communities, consumers are not disproportionately badly affected as we make the transition away from coal, oil and gas in particular. So it seems to me that we should resist calls for returning to normal.
Normal is bad. The Great Reset is all about a green new economy around the world. Make no mistake, if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris win this election, the Great Reset and the Green New Deal dismantling of capitalism begins under the slogan of Build Back Better. Don't say you weren't warned.